Hello everybody, Kelly Rice here, but I write under my pen name K.M. Rice. And welcome to my author vlog. Today, instead of fielding a question from a viewer, I thought I would just have a brief discussion about something that's been on my mind lately, and that is character psychology. This kind of came to the forefront because I was having a discussion with another author just the other night about our various characters and how sometimes you have a preconceived idea about them and then things go in a direction that you did not plan, and that's when they feel alive to you. So I thought I would explain just a little bit of my process of character creation, because there are so many different ways to go about it. Just because this is the way that I've done it doesn't mean that it's the way you have to do it. And of course, find what works for you and experiment if you're not necessarily comfortable with the way that you've been writing so far. So when I was a child, I remember I was exposed to a few writing workshops, they called them, like in 6th grade and stuff. They had us prove that we learned some history by writing a story set in mine was set in ancient Egypt, and it was about an ancient Egyptian girl looking for her lost cat. And part of that process was they gave us prompts. They gave us sheets of paper to fill out questions about our characters. And I think that that can be really helpful because, at least back then, I was going to be writing a story that was completely stemming from a character. So what height are they? What color are their eyes? Do they have a limp? What color is their hair? What type of hair do they have? What length? So those are all physical descriptions, but also you'd be prompted of what's their favorite color? What's their best childhood memory? And these sorts of exercises are really useful because it prompts you to look at your characters in depth. And I remember using those tools and just relishing them when I was in high school and thereabouts. So I do think that that can be really helpful. However, I found that when it actually came to writing books and telling stories with characters as an adult, I took a much more organic approach, which within the first roughly 10,000 words, I always feel alienated from my characters a bit. And I think I've talked about this before, how it feels like I'm in a room full of people that I don't exactly know. There's kind of a coldness there. And that used to kind of discourage me. That used to make me feel like, oh, I'm not doing this right. Maybe I shouldn't be telling this story. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of then stopping right then and there. You shouldn't, though, because the only way, unless you have everything planned out ahead of time, which if you guys are regulars, you know I don't do that. The only way you're going to get to know your characters is through experiencing the story with them. And that's what I have found. I think that usually characters present themselves to me through my subconscious with broad brushstrokes about their physical appearance and about their main personality traits. However, it is then up to me to fine-tune them and decipher what makes them tick. And as I was mentioning at the beginning of this, sometimes you will have an idea about a character and then you'll put them in a situation and you'll start writing and you'll realize this feels icky, and that can sometimes lead to writer's block because you've taken a turn that your creative force, your subconscious, whatever you want to call it, doesn't want you to actually take. So it's because some part of your internal editor, that voice that you're trying to cultivate, realizes that you're being inauthentic to the character. And again, that could be because you're applying a set of standards to that person that are from an external source, maybe what society's taught you to think stories of this nature should be like, people of this nature should be like, versus what actually feels true to you. And this is where it gets weird, because every character is an expression of yourself in some way, as the author, because you're their originator, you're their creator. even the villains. So I'll bring up Darkling because a lot of you at least have some concept of what Darkling is if you haven't read it or listened to the audiobook yourself, which, of course, both are available along with their companion novel, The Watcher. But those characters came to me. I mean, I think I've talked about this before. Darkling was inspired by a dream, and when I set out to write Willow, the one intention I had was to make her different than me, because the very first book I ever wrote, I felt like the character was very similar to me, or an idealized version of myself. If I were brave and off on an adventure, that's what I would be like. So I set about trying to make her very different than me, and what I think ended up happening was a semi-juvenile mistake of, she's short, she's curvy, and she's blonde. Okay, so I'm relatively tall, not super curvy, and obviously, you know, like, so in some part of my mind I was like, she's so different, but you're going to find similarities in things that you like and things that you dislike in all of the characters that you're writing about. And there's always a massive danger in writing about characters who are self-reflective of you, because you, through your sense of self-preservation, are going to be hesitant to put that character in great jeopardy or to have anything truly tragic or traumatizing happen to them, because you're going to feel like you need to protect that part of yourself. It's this weird kind of psychology that goes on. So I was conscious of trying to craft a character, and again, Darkling was the third book I ever wrote, but the first in its own little world, because, oh my god, I'm gonna sneeze.
Sorry, Mischief.
Mischief's in here chewing on a bone, letting me film. Excuse me. Now that sneeze just blew me totally off track. I was talking about Willow, something about crafting a character. Crap. Man. Maybe it just like sneezed this vlog right out of my head. Well, I don't know where I was going, but I'll just pick up where I think I left off, in that you're going to tend to infuse characters that you like with personality traits that you admire, and perhaps things about yourself that you're very comfortable with. And then, like I said in my first book, that character, she was a hero, or a heroine. Like I said, she was quite similar to me, only much more, I would say, brazen. She was a bit more like Lyra from His Dark Materials, or maybe Jo March from Little Women. I felt strong influences from those two protagonists, and so you do want to avoid writing something autobiographical, or you'd call it a Mary Sue in the fan fiction world, just because of the inherent dangers of not telling a very exciting story. But at the same time, I think it's important to infuse your characters with what you know, and with traits you know, and with traits you admire. That said, when I went on and wrote Ophelia, well, that's what I was saying. That Darkling was the third book I ever wrote, but the first two books I wrote were in the same series, so Darkling was kind of like a fresh start. My Afterworld series, another fresh start. By the time I got to that series, I was at a point in my writing growth where I realized that I had a tendency to imbibe my protagonists with traits that I admire and things that I admire, and as such, they're not necessarily very well-rounded, flawed people. If they never leave you feeling icky, then, or feeling like, why do I have this relationship with this person? Because I was finding that I was really gravitating towards characters in TV shows that I was watching where they're like a murderer, but you love them. You know, they force you to have some introspection because you're conflicted over, but I can't like this person, can I? They did a bad thing, but they did it for this reason and that and that. So I really like giving yourself that food for thought, and the way that characters can kind of shine that light back on you. So when I did write my Afterworld series, I made an effort to let the characters exist on their own for some time, at least the first 10,000 words, and character traits that I thought they might have, I just gave them the freedom to see if those traits were going to come to fruition or if they weren't. And I always, always, always end up going back to the beginning of the book and changing dialogue and changing descriptions and changing traits about the characters, because inevitably, as they start to surface organically as I'm writing, I'm going to realize that whatever preconceived idea I had of them, whatever spark it was that just was like, and he wears glasses! Okay, sure. And then I might go back later and go, the glasses disappeared, because now I see him in my head and he doesn't have them. So always remember, you can change anything. Nothing's set in stone. So if you need to go back, you can go back. And I have a tendency to, because I don't outline, that if there's something really grating and I know I need to change it, I might pause where I'm currently at and go back and amend that piece earlier in the manuscript right then and there, just so that I can have some quiet in my mind instead of the nagging, you forgot this, you need to change this. So yeah, I tend to let my characters evolve very organically throughout the telling of the story. And I did make an effort with the Afterworld series to give the protagonists traits that I did not like, that I did not admire, and things that bothered me. Some of them were super, super minor character traits that wouldn't bother other people, but I just wanted to have a more full experience of trying on these different personalities, because really, you're acting, aren't you? I noticed, again, if you guys watch this regularly, you know I tend to write very, very quickly. And when I'm doing that, my first draft is almost all emotion, and it's very exhausting because she's saying this and she feels like this, and he's saying that and he feels like that, and I'm in the bodies of these characters, experiencing it, expressing that, and it's really often, you know, I'll be like, he furrows his brow at her, and she leans backwards, and, you know, there's dramatic movements, and then I'm like, okay, when I go back to look at it again, I'm like, he just furrowed his brow 5 times on this page. I need to now start to fine-tune it. Once I get the broad brush strokes of the emotions of the scene out, then I tend to go and be like, how is he holding himself? What is he wearing? What is he doing? What can he be doing with his hands, or something that has a deeper significance to betray what he's actually thinking versus what he's saying, or give some subtext to the scene in another way. And that's when I tend to go in and then start editing and fleshing out those minor details. And again, that's also part of the process of once you get to know the characters more, then you can go and add those things. And it just makes it a more enriching experience. So all of this said, I think a lot of other authors would agree with me. Maybe they wouldn't, though. That I don't feel true ownership over any of my characters. To me, I have this weird respect for them as if they are their own beings. And I get into this all the time with my sister. We'll be discussing one of my books, and she'll be like, do you think so-and-so did this because of that? And I'd be like, maybe. I mean, what do you think? I mean, I guess, yeah, you know what? You're probably right. They would. Now, some people would say I'm a sloppy author, that maybe I should have tons of information about the backstories of all my characters and everything that maybe you don't see on screen, okay, not on screen, on the page, worked out. But I find that I get to know them to the point that she loves to just ask me questions and be like, what's so-and-so doing right now? And it just comes into my head because I know them so well. It will just come into my head and I can answer it right then and there. But again, that's an organic, creative, in-the-moment process. However, when it comes to discussions about them, I'm like open to everyone's interpretation because I feel like, yeah, maybe that is why they did it. I just wrote the dang thing. Like, I just was the conduit to put it out there into the universe and have their story be told, but I don't know what the absolute truth is about this character, and I don't always know what's going to happen to them after the book ends. I don't have a preconceived idea. If I wanted to find out, I would probably have to write another book myself. So I find that part really magical, though, the fact that they feel real enough to me and to some of my readers that we can discuss them as if they're real people, and I can join in the conversation without being like, no, you've got it all wrong. Unless someone really has it wrong. If someone really has it wrong, though, what that tells me is, you didn't do that right, you didn't convey that right, me. Because if they manage to get some really strong misconception about the character, then that's probably on me. But most of the time it's very enjoyable to hear everyone's take and everyone projecting their own interpretation onto these people who have only ever lived in your head and now live on the page, and then go out into the world through everyone else's imaginations, and they can never be destroyed because they only exist in the ethereal world of that has no time, the ethereal world of Plato's forms, things that cannot be seen or touched, only felt and seen in your mind's eye, so they are truly indestructible. In that way, my characters will always outlive me, so long as there are books. I didn't ever really think about that to that depth until right then. See, that's why this vlog is good. It's just like my sister asking me questions about her favorite characters, and I'm like, yeah, they're doing this. I just like got to seem really deep for a moment to you guys. Well, I hope that at least provides an introduction to examining some of your character's psychology, and maybe helps you guys as you are starting your own books or your own video games or scripts or films or whatever it is where you are needing to create some people. And by people, they don't have to be people. It could be a story about a teapot, and the teapot has hopes and dreams and whatever. Characters. Yes. So today I'm going to sign off with this beautiful bowl. Isn't that gorgeous? It's beautiful just on its own, but you know what it is? It's a yarn bowl. For those of you who did not know, I have an Etsy shop and I do a lot of knitting. And you can find my scarves on there along with autographed books. And the way this works is you put the ball of yarn in there and you have the string of yarn come out here. And the idea is that it slowly unravels and doesn't get tangled. Because if any of my fellow knitters or crocheters out there know, if you have a big skein or skein that's come unraveled slightly, it can make the task so much more difficult. Another reminder, I also have a Patreon, where if you enjoy this vlog, you can support it for $1 a month. And there are currently 2 other tiers you could sign up for if it so entrances you. One is a dose of monthly madness for $5, and that will be varying things. I think we've had 3 of them now. One was me dancing pretty amazingly, I have to say, with a CGI hippo, I believe it was. The next was me being attacked by my dog. And the most recent one was me reenacting a scene from Step Brothers in which I was Brennan and Dale, the singing scene. For $10 a month, you can subscribe to Scribblings, which is when I give you an exclusive look at what I'm working on right now, or a poem, or a short story, or an author reading, anything that that I'm currently doing that I would like to share with you. So, if that sounds fun, pop on over there and have a look. And oh, and if you can change it at any time, and if you subscribe to like the $10 one, you have access to all the ones below it, and all the ones that have come beforehand. So if you only sign up now, and you're like, I want to see the Brennan and Dale scene or whatever, then you can see those posts as well. You'll have access. So, that's my spiel for Patreon, and thank you guys all so much for watching, and of course for all of your support, and for your questions. Please keep them coming. So for me and my beautiful yarn bowl that was gifted to me by my lovely neighbor, I wish you all a very fond farewell.